So let's start. To begin, I want to just jump back to about 2 weeks ago. In my last summary video, I mentioned how coercion is a part of our everyday process. Often involuntarily, we all experience it and actively play a role in perpetuating coercion. This can be through our education system, our governing body, law enforcement, our workplace, whatever it may be. It is a part of each and every one of our everyday lives. And avoidance is a direct consequence of coercion. And once we understand that, we can then go to say that many of us avoid more things than we realize, and that many of our behaviors are, motivated by avoidance contingencies. So before we really analyze the side effects of avoidance, I want to provide an example of a laboratory observation of avoidance contingencies. So say that we have a box, and inside this box is a rat. Every few seconds or every few minutes, we deliver a shock to this rat, and the only way for this rat to avoid the shock is by pressing a lever on the other side of the chamber. Quickly, we will observe the rat pressing the lever every single time this shock is delivered, and then continuing to press the lever in order to keep the shock away. Here, we could say the rat has learned to press the lever, when actually we have just observed the establishment of an avoidance contingency, as this rat is only participating in the lever pressing behavior to avoid the shock at hand. So this begs the question that Sidman gives of avoidance contingencies work, but do they really teach? Are we actually learning from these types of contingencies? And under further discussion and investigation, we could say that no, what is learned is not actually learned, and rather we're seeing coercion being expressed, and very unethical, disturbing side effects that come from this. So I'm going to do my best to be kind of quick with this. How are these behaviors maintained? First, these organisms and individuals that are participating in avoidant contingencies are keeping their nose out of trouble, right? Because the lever or lever pressing behaviors in any set environment, because avoidance is very general to many species, right? Everyone has their behavior that is equivalent to that of lever pressing. The lever pressing behavior provides safety, and all actions are going to be dominated by the present threat, whether that is shock or avoiding an argument with a partner, avoiding a spanking from your parents. Organisms are going to participate in the behavior that avoids these disruptions. So the rat is going to continue to press the lever, and it's not going to engage in anything else. We're not going to observe this rat sniffing the corners or scratching at the wall. They're going to be so fine-tuned to only engage in this one behavior, because safety becomes the primary goal over productivity. The same way in which a partner may learn how to hold in their feelings or negative emotions against an abusive partner in order to avoid being hit or verbally abused. And this is also leading into don't rock the boat. Sidman says that these individuals living these lives of avoidance live very inflexible lives. Because of the coercion surrounding them, or the consistent delivery of these negative punishers, i.e. the shock, these organisms learn to engage and only participate in the one behavior that is their lever pressing behavior. Notes. So by walking the straight and narrow, by participating in these behaviors that can ensure the avoidance of a punisher, we don't see much engagement in other behaviors. To have an option of another behavior or to have the choice to engage in other behaviors opens the opportunity for the delivery of a shock. So if the rat were to leave the lever and explore the walls or explore the corners, within those few seconds or few minutes, a shock could be delivered, which could have been avoided had they just continued to press the lever. So by keeping their nose down and not rocking the boat, these organisms and these avoidant contingencies can have better luck with avoiding the delivery of a shock. Sidman also discusses the process of slow learning and avoidance contingencies. Because avoidance behaviors and avoidance contingencies, we are still hoping to teach something. The process of learning this contingency can be slow. As we mentioned, the rat is pressing this lever to avoid the shock. And it may take some time for the rat to actually learn what the shock means. It may take a long period of time or multiple deliveries of this negative reinforcer or this punisher for the rat to understand that the participation in this behavior is actually cutting down on the punishment being delivered. And this can be a very slow process because of the, as Sidman says, cyclic nature of avoidance. The very success that avoidance guarantees, because you are avoiding the punisher, makes the entire process of learning what the punisher entails very, very slow. And knowing this, you may just have to wait until it hurts. So we just mentioned that avoidance can take a long time. It can be very slow, and in turn can be very fragile. And there aren't many instances where, sorry, I lost my place in my notes. It is possible to learn avoidance simply by following rules and not actually experiencing the punisher. But more often than not, the punisher has to be delivered once, twice, or multiple times in order for avoidance to be established and continued in this pattern. But for individuals and organisms and rats, etc., these infrequent shocks, because of the consistent engagement and avoidant behavior, can actually reduce the effectiveness of avoidance contingencies. So like I said, because this rat or organism is constantly engaging in this behavior to avoid the punisher, the contingency that one is trying to teach or learn may actually be forgotten. And this is where we kind of say, yes, it works. It would appear the behavior is learned, but we're not actually teaching anything. And the very success of avoidance guarantees that it will eventually weaken because of the consistent engagement with the lever pressing behavior. It takes the occasional delivery of the punisher to reinforce the engagement in the behavior. After a while, the rat's going to become unmotivated and have the occasional lapse in participation of this behavior, and it will take delivery of the punishment to keep the avoidance going. It's almost like it takes a reminder of the negative to keep working for the positive, or the delay and avoidance of the shock. So we understand this as the avoidance paradox. We have to encounter the punishment in order to know what to avoid, but in order to continue avoiding, we have to be reminded of what punishment is. So again, as Sidman says, this is an inherently cyclic theory or contingency. So I'm running out of time. I just want to finish by saying that, short and sweet, avoidance is directly related to coercion, and it's very hard to have one without the other. And more often than not, avoidance behaviors lack accountability, and this is where we observe the more immoral and unethical experiences being held. So, to quickly wrap this all together, my question for this week's discussion is, do you think there's a way in which we could establish avoidance behaviors that lead to teaching rather than just learning based off fear? And if so, can you think of what an example would be? Thanks.